Welcome to the Cloak and Dagger podcast. On this podcast, we'll be talking about freeform show Cloak and Dagger. Here are your hosts, Kat and Butch.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Cloak and Dagger podcast. I am your host, Kat, and I'm here with my co-host, Butch.
Still wearing the same shirts.
Yes, we are both still wearing the same clothes because we are recording our episode 4 in regards to episode 2 of Cloak and Dagger, entitled Suicide Sprints, right after we recorded our first episode. So again, these are both available today for listening. So thank you guys again for joining us. We had an amazing time discussing that first episode, and we got spoiled, and we had a 2-episode season premiere. And I think before we could even take a breath and react to what happened in that first episode, it jumped right into the second episode. I don't even think I realized it was happening when I was watching that episode 2 had even started, until I looked at what time it was. I was like, oh, okay, I better split up my notes so I don't get confused here. But episode 2, again, that's titled Suicide Sprints, and we see why it's entitled Suicide Sprints later in the episode. But we start out with that amazing scene of little Ty and Tandy washed up on the beach, and they're holding hands. And Tandy kind of wakes up first, and as we see from Tandy through her life, she is in a situation where she's scared or doesn't know what's going on, and she runs. But she takes that cloak, that little robe from Ty, and she takes that with her. Am I missing anything in that scene? Because I feel like I didn't 100% see this scene the first time I watched it because I was trying to get my notes together.
No. For some reason they were that's cool. I'm trying to figure out if that's when did I realize that it's the same cloak that she's wearing?
Oh, I had that written down in my notes. I had that written down and circled and starred because that killed me. I was like, oh, I'm being attacked by this show with the cloak. So we have that image of baby Ty and Tandy, and you're like, oh, yes, they knew each other. And then we jump right back into where we had left off in the first episode of Tandy's in trouble and Ty is also in trouble. So we see Tandy, and she's in the alley, and she's basically about to get raped by this guy who she robbed. He's got her pinned. She has no defenses on her. She's got a tiny purse and this dress that she stole from him. And he's got her pinned against the wall, and he tells his friends to leave. And she's in an alley. Nobody's going to see her. So you're like, what's going to happen? And to me, I don't know. I thought Ty was going to come save her. That was my thought of what was going to happen in that. But then surprisingly, and maybe not surprisingly, but very well done, he's telling her to give up. And she's like, no, I'm not giving up. And that's when she forms that light dagger in her hand, and she ends up stabbing the guy in the stomach. And that's how she's able to get away. But the dagger in her hand, it was cool looking. It looked like a crystal, and it was all illuminated, and she's staring at it what the hell just happened? How did I make this? And then all of a sudden it disappears. So what were your thoughts? Because that was the first look at her dagger power.
Yeah, well, very well done. In the comic books, she can't really do that, or she doesn't bother doing that, I guess. She's kind of more experienced already in the comic book, so she just throws her daggers around. So we never see her, seeing the blood on the dagger. That's okay, so it's such a solid thing. And I'm more used to the dagger in the comic books. When she throws her light daggers, they're just energy beams, basically. So
so it's not a solid thing like we just saw in the show. It's more okay.
Right, and I think part of that is just the practicality of shooting shooting versus drawing something. It has to be a real thing. And in this case, it works because it makes the daggers more real, more tangible. And then the effect of I'm sorry, but it's just a small thing. But the effect of the dagger disappearing, like when I saw it, I was like, "Oh, that was really smooth." And then I was watching it with my wife the second time, and I was like looking for a reaction, and she's like, "Ooh," like that's cool. It didn't look like computer graphics at all. Like very well done.
Yeah, I was shocked that it kind of just like faded away. Like she didn't even really get to look at it, but that was cool. And that's interesting that there is a difference from the comic books, that it's kind of like just a beam of light in the comic books, but it's almost like they updated it to be an actual dagger in the show.
Yeah, it's a dagger.
Like,
yeah, makes sense.
Thing, right. Good thing, because it was slightly useful in that situation, because I really did not know how she was going to get out of this, opposed from like somebody coming to help her. But we did have that. That was a really cool scene, and I'm just looking at the screenshots that you sent me, and Olivia's face when she's looking at the dagger, like, again, fantastic acting. She just has this look of shock on her face. And so she stabbed the guy, and he's laying on the ground, and of course she runs, because that's what she does when there's a situation. So she's running.
That's her
then
thing.
just making sure I've got all of my notes here. So we've got Tandy, who's basically saved herself, and then we go back to Ty in the trunk, and you're like, what trunk is he in? And you're kind of looking at the stuff in the trunk, and you see that big duffel bag, and you're like, I've seen that duffel bag before. That's the same bag that Detective Connors had that he was putting in his trunk when we saw him first. And you're like, how the heck did he end up in Detective Connors' trunk, of all places?
That lame-ass car. That old... every trunk. And we said, like, there's like this greater power guiding him, right?
Yeah.
The greater power wasn't really looking out for him this time. Like, it put him right in the middle of danger, and he had to figure out a way to improvise. He had to, like, work with what he had, and what he had was a crowbar or something, and some, I guess it's cocaine or something. So it was like, how is he gonna get out of this? And they found a way to do it.
And then you're still left with, like, what is Detective Connors in that scene? Because you can hear from Ty's perspective, you can hear, like, a police radio. And I was like, is that a police radio because he's in an undercover police car? Like, is Detective Connors acting as an undercover cop in this specific instance? Or does he just have a police scanner because he's doing something illegal and he wants to make sure nobody knows about it? So then Ty finds the huge brick of cocaine, and then you see the scene where Detective Connors is basically trying to sell this guy this cocaine he has.
Yeah.
Well, then he opens his trunk, and surprise, surprise, Ty throws cocaine on him and jumps out of the truck. Drug dealer runs off, and then Ty takes off running as well, and Detective Connors chases after him. So, they're running. Connors does end up catching him. And, he's trying to, like, figure out what's going on. But then all of a sudden, we get that flashback theme. So the lights start going kind of dim where they are. And, well, maybe now looking back at it, because this was kind of similar to something we saw later in the episode where, like, the lights got really dark. But is this, like, this is Ty's power then, correct? Of that he can see, like... So if Tandy can see the hope of everybody, then we know Ty can see everybody's fears. And we've seen this explained in some promos. But we see that flashback from Detective Connors' perspective of that night where Billy was shot. And it's Detective Connors saying, oh my God, I shot this kid. I don't know why I did this. And the other cop being, we've got to get some help. And he's like, no, I'm going to call my uncle. And you're like, oh. So here's the crooked cop angle being brought in. Like, he called his uncle, whoever his uncle is, and obviously was successful in covering up that there was a crime at all.
Right.
Right. then I wonder who is his uncle, like, was he the police chief, or is his uncle like a mayor? So obviously somebody in power who can cover
pull strings.
And Butch, we've talked before, there's a line in one of the promos, and not to get too far into the future, but where Detective O'Reilly kind of mentions that Detective Connors is like the cop that never was. And then you get that sense of like, yeah, he had something erased. And it was something that he wouldn't necessarily want anybody to know about. So in that instance, Ty is really getting that confirmation that yes, this is the cop, and this is the cop who killed my brother. This actually did happen.
Right. So and it was mentioned too that like that phrasing, what we saw from the promos was Detective O'Reilly saying it, but the police chief in the flashback from episode 1 said it too. Like he said something like he doesn't exist.
Yeah.
So, but at the same time, he's still working for I think he said Vice or so, like the DEA or something like that. So he's still an active cop. So I don't know how that works, but they could cover up like that specific thing, and he's still. I guess he kept his name, and he's still a police officer. But yeah, so somebody with a lot of stroke, his Uncle Connors.
Yeah. So you see this scene of the fear. So Ty is able to see that fear, and then they kind of come back into reality.
Yeah.
And they're both kind of caught off guard, but Detective Connors aims at Ty, shoots, and then there's nothing. He's shooting at nothing. Ty's not there anymore. There's no bullet to be found. And then we're taken to Ty, who's actually brought back into his bedroom. And he's laying on the floor of his bedroom. And the bullet was in his garbage can.
Yeah, that's crazy. Cool.
That was really, really cool imagery. So then kind of at the end of that scene, we see Ty take that bullet and he puts it, I don't know if it's on his desk or in a box. I'll have to rewatch that episode again just to make sure. But he puts it right next to the ballet slipper. And where do you think he got that ballet slipper from? Oh my gosh. Like in that scene. So we had the realization that Tandy took that cloak, that robe, whatever Ty was wearing when he was a kid, and that was what he was wearing when he saved her in. And Tandy still wears that cloak that she had from him from the beach.
Yeah, the hoodie, yeah.
So that like I was attacked in that episode in that scene with the robe. I'm like, oh my god, she still has it, she's still wearing it. Like my feels have just been attacked. So then I realized that, and then we come to Ty and he still has the ballet shoe, and I was like, oh well, I already died. Dig me up again and kill me again, because this is just
so broken right now.
Yes, that was that was probably my favorite 2 parts of the episode, just having that visual scene. That even after all that time, they both still have that connection. That's crazy to me. That they both kind of like saved those pieces of each other for each other to keep that connection.
Yeah.
Like, and just such a good job. But it's funny because I like circled and starred those 2 things in my notes like crazy because that was such an impact on me. But yeah, when Ty appears in his room, you kind of get that first look at the smoky, dark energy cloud that's around him.
Yeah.
And I think that's when I realized, like, oh yes, this definitely, obviously it has something to do with this power that he keeps ending up in places, but here's that dark energy, very visual, in that scene.
And it's cool because it's obviously an indicator of his using his power. And right before that, when they were in the abandoned warehouse, when we get the Detective Connors, when he touches Ty, and then we get the flashback, and Ty can see his fear, and then after that, like when they jump back into reality, like did you notice like Detective Connors was kind of weakened a little bit?
Oh yeah.
That's why Ty was able to like run away, get away from him.
Okay.
And that whole thing is Cloak's other power other than teleporting. Like with Dagger, we mentioned that she doesn't have that hope-seeing ability too much in the comics, but for Cloak, what he did to Detective Connors, that's just about exactly what he does in the comic books. When he touches someone or he grabs them and puts them inside his cloak, he can see their greatest fear, and they relive their greatest fear, and they come out and they're cold and they're, I don't know, like sickly, and they have no energy. So that's exactly what happened with Detective Connors. And yeah, it's cool when he teleports, and then he shows off his other power. He teleports, and the bullet just goes with him, and it's like super hot when he touches it.
Yeah.
And it's it just comes straight to the garbage can thing. And yeah, you know what? I missed the ballet shoe here. To be honest, I was just looking at the bullet. So that's cool that you saw it and you're like, you felt all the feelings.
Go back and watch that, and you're gonna be like, oh. Okay.
I'm done. All right.
Yes. So we had that, and then we were attacked in like the first 5 minutes of the episode, and then we saw Detective O'Reilly. So cool to see her enter, and she is investigating the crime that was committed in the alley, basically when Tandy stabbed the guy with her light dagger. So we see her investigating that crime, and then we see, and again, we're kind of skipping between, what's going on with Ty and what's going on with Tandy, but we know from the conversation that Tandy knows that the guy is still alive. So we know that there is a crime that's being investigated, that, we have the blood on the ground, and Detective Bridget O'Reilly is the one who is in charge of finding out basically what happened. So we have her introduction, and that was cool to see. Another one of the actors we were looking forward to in this show. And it was just a really quick intro from her, but she did have some more parts in this episode, but I definitely think that she's going to play a bigger role throughout the series, throughout this first season, don't you think?
Oh, for sure. For sure. We just got a taste of her in this episode. She doesn't really even say anything for most of it, so I think that was really cool. Like, like, I don't think she has like maybe 2 or 3 small scenes, and she doesn't say a word, which is very interesting.
She does at the end. She has a good line at the end.
Right, and of course it has so much impact because she's quiet for the first few scenes, and just so we're one of my nitpicks so just so people know we're not just blindly loving everything that they have in this show.
We have objective opinions as well.
Yeah, I didn't like that they played her off as she was doing like the Sherlock Holmes Cumberbatch thing where she's like observing stuff. I don't know what she was observing really. Like she was looking around and then she notices the blood, but the blood is marked already, so it's not like she saw something that was hidden. So I was like, oh, why did? I mean, I'm sure she's a great detective, but she didn't really come across as doing great detective work for this part. Yeah. But for Emma, the actress, like so I'm starting to see why they picked her for the role. She has like this intensity and like I don't know, like a manic kind of look. Like it's very intimidating, and we'll see later when she's dealing with the other spoiled rich brats, like how fierce she can look. That was pretty scary. So just for the introduction, very impactful because of the fact that there was no sound, I think.
Yeah.
Very well done.
And I think to just kind of show that, she's good cop. So we've seen bad cop, and now we have Detective Bridget as good cop, or at least this is the cop who's actually doing their job.
Yes.
So we had that introduction very quickly. Then we're taken right into Ty, who is at school because it looks like he goes to a Catholic school, and he's talking with Father Delgado. And they're talking basically, yes, we got our introduction to Father Delgado, and I like his character a lot. I can't wait to see more from him. But they're talking about Ty's. Yeah, again, all the casting was fantastic, but Jamie, who plays Father Delgado, did let me look up his last name so I know. Jamie Zaveos, who plays Father Delgado, did a fantastic job here, and he is talking to Ty about the pain over losing his brother, and Ty saying, I'm having a hard time sleeping. And we're in the background going, yeah, because you're being teleported to crazy places, and don't tell him how you ended up in the cop's trunk and all this stuff.
Yeah, maybe skip that part.
Yeah, I think I missed a part. I'm going to have to watch this part again, but does he say something, Father Delgado say something to him about the pills he gave him, or like the pills I prescribed to you, or the pills I gave you? Did you catch that?
Yeah, but, man, he said something about pills, and I think Ty said that he wasn't taking them, something like that.
Yeah, I'm gonna watch.
So I guess it's like a recurring thing again with drugs and stuff.
Yeah, but like, how does Father Delgado have the power to prescribe if he's the prescriber?
That's true.
Pills like that was questionable to me, so I'm gonna have to go back and rewatch that and just put a question mark there, like, what's going on? Is there more to Father Delgado than meets the eye? Is he a doctor, a psychiatrist in disguise?
Right.
But
he's got a lot of ink too, so there's definitely more to him than your typical priest.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
So then we're taken to a scene with more Father Delgado, and he's giving his sermon. So they're obviously, again, they're in a Catholic school, so they're attending mass while they're in school, and all of the students are on their phones and they're not paying attention at all to what Father Delgado is saying. And when I rewatch the episode again, I think I'm gonna kind of close my eyes and just really listen to his sermon to see, because I think his sermon, I think that the writers chose that for a reason. That, we see this scene of Evita comes and sits next to Ty, and they're talking to each other through text message, even though they're sitting right next to each other. And they're kind of like, he's kind of saying sorry, and she's forgiving him, and kind of trying to get a feel for, like, hey, who was that girl? And he's like, yeah, I don't know, just some troubled girl. But Ty is then kind of staring up at the stained glass windows while Father Delgado is talking about something hopeful that he was preaching about. So that's why I want to go back and listen to that. But then Evita is also texting Ty as like, you should be a saint. You should be up in the stained glass. Your picture should be up there. So that was an interesting scene to kind of see them kind of make up, in a friendship way. But then we also see that Ty's in the choir. That was cool that we got to see him sing.
And that was him really singing, I think. I think Aubrey mentioned that. Yeah. Wow. I can do. He's like a dancer. And
I know. Super, super multi-talented. Well, we know that he was in The Lion King on Broadway. When that was like his major role when he was a kid.
Oh, right. Yeah.
So he's got some singing experience, and then we know as well we know that he's got, super dancing abilities as well. So that was cool but you get that image of Ty, and he's like, man, he goes to this Catholic school, and he's like a good kid, and he's in the choir, and he's a basketball player, and he's got like all this stuff going for him, but now all this crazy stuff is happening to him. And then, basically dredging up the past of what happened to Billy and going through those emotions again of what happened to Billy. But Father Delgado seems to be like a really good support system for him. And that's the case in the comics, right?
Well, it's interesting. I don't know if he's a good influence on him. Because Delgado was talking about, when they were talking about poison in being bottled up, and Tai was alluding to going after Detective Connors without naming Detective Connors.
Yeah.
He said something like, I'm not sure if I got it right, but he said something like, "I'm not the one who suggested the idea," or something like that. Like I think he was hinting that Delgado maybe put the idea in his head in the past, but I'm not sure. I could be totally wrong about that.
Oh, that's an interesting. Yeah. So he said something like, I think Father Delgado said, "What would God do in this situation, or what would God want you to do in this situation?" And that's when Tai said, I don't think he's the one who gave me the idea in the first place. And you're like, So
right.
Is he referring to, I guess I felt like he was referring to whatever that power is that's drawing him to Detective Connors.
Oh, okay. Interesting. Yeah. That could be it. Yeah.
And again,
maybe I'm just projecting, because Delgado seems so interesting. Like we see in his later scenes, he's just more than a normal kind of fatherly priest.
Yeah.
So, maybe I was like projecting that.
There's definitely something about him that's not a typical priest in a Catholic school.
Yeah.
But,
and sorry, in the comic books, like you asked about the comic book version of Father Delgado. It's very different. It's completely different. Delgado doesn't like Cloak in the comic books. He doesn't trust Cloak.
Really?
Yeah. He feels like Cloak is like a bad like vampiric parasitic influence on Dagger, because he of course he adores, like, people gravitate towards Dagger in the comic book, and he's no different, and he's always kind of scheming to get her away from his, like, quote unquote demonic influence. So completely different, but so cool. Like it's a different kind of relationship, and it's so interesting so far because of the two characters. So it's something to look forward to. That dynamic.
That's definitely an interesting perspective then, because then you wonder, like, will they? So you mentioned, like, his bad influence maybe then over Tandy. So you wonder if they're going to explore that, and was that hinting when he said, I don't think God is the one who suggested this to me, kind of line. Are we going to go in, like, a dark way, or is he referring to this overarching power that's kind of bringing him to where he is? And what is Father Delgado going to think about that when he finds out what's actually going on if he finds out what's actually going on with Tai? Who knows how long that will take for him to find out what's actually going on with him.
And when he meets Dagger.
Because he doesn't even know Tandy at this point. He only knows Tai because he's essentially one of his teachers, guidance counselor kind of figure.
Right.
Oh, that's interesting. Then we had a scene where I was kind of confused about what was going on. But Tai's mom had a gun. And she had, like, that gun was gigantic. Oh. And all I could think of was, if she actually fired that gun, she would be like thrown backwards, because that gun was huge. But did you follow what was going on in that scene? Because I wasn't 100% sure.
I just assumed that they were, I just assumed they were showing us that, because she's pretty well, she held it together in the first episode. Like, she's like, like a strong motherly figure, and maybe they're just showing that there are some cracks there. Like, they start to show, like, she's not perfect. Like, there's stuff happening underneath, which mirrors what's happening with her son.
Mm-hmm.
So that could be it. Like, showing that parallel, how they deal with it.
And we saw that.
What did you think?
We saw that, and I that's what I gathered from it, but I was like, did I miss something? Because all I could focus on was how big that gun was. I'm like, that is quite a large gun for this smaller woman, and she is not going to be able to fire this gun successfully. But then I was like, what is she aiming at? Because it kind of just seems like she took it outside and was just, like, acting like she was going to shoot it. And
stress relief.
Yeah. Well, okay, right. So like she needed a kind of escape because maybe she would had a moment of like panic because obviously she's been through some
Yeah.
serious stuff with the loss of her son.
Hmm.
So trying to hold it together, trying to be a strong woman, mother, wife, and then she had a moment where she kind of did break, and that was kind of how she dealt with it. So that was a really good look into her character. And again, Gloria Rubin did a fantastic job. But I wonder if that's also showing that there is a gun in the household, and if that's going to come into
Right.
play at any time in the future.
Later
Because it
on.
wasn't like
Like,
super hidden or anything. It was kind of just like behind a box on the shelf.
yeah, maybe even later in the episode
Yeah.
that makes an appearance. So
Yeah.
foreshadowing.
Yes. So then we see Ty again following Detective Connors, and he's kind of like hanging out. He's obsessed with this at this point, following Detective Connors, seeing what he's doing. And you see Detective Connors has propane tanks in a box, and you're like, what is he doing with this stuff now?
Right.
um, so that was what was going on with Ty during those moments. And then we come back and we're back at Tandy, and she's with Liam, and she's basically telling him, I'm in trouble, I need help, I need to get out of here. And he's like, okay, let's go get you a new ID. And we've talked about Liam and how I was not going to like Liam, but I was going to give him a chance. And he grew on me in this episode because Tandy's
Yeah.
coming to him and she's freaked out, and he's like, we'll take care of it. It's no big deal. Like, he's just like this calming factor. And he's not, I don't know, I didn't get the sense that, like, because in my head, like, I had this preconceived notion that, like, he was the one who was pushing her into
Yeah.
this life of crime. And that's
Right.
not really the case. They're kind of like together and they do things together, but Tandy is in no way, shape, or form being forced into doing anything.
Absolutely. He, like you, they obviously you gather that they're partners,
Mm-hmm.
and we don't know enough about Liam. Maybe he is sort of, or maybe he did in the past. Like maybe we don't know, but maybe he pushed her into that life.
Yeah.
But it seems like the way they're, or at least the way they're portraying him, he's like there's a lot of positive in him. Like yeah, he's maybe he dragged her into that life of crime, maybe not, but for sure he's a good influence on her now, given their lifestyle.
Yeah.
They're they have complementary skills.
Yeah. Okay, that's a really nice way of saying it. They have complementary skills for sure.
Yeah.
And I don't know if, like, he definitely is on her side. Like, he wants to be there for her. He wants to provide some kind of structure and safety for her, even if it's not in the best means. So obviously, running away from the law and going to get a new ID is not the best way to deal with your problems, but he just wants to make sure that she's safe and that she's comfortable and she's happy. So they make this plan that, they're going to get a new ID. And so she obviously needs money. So then we come into a scene, and I know that you like the scene because this scene was so well acted. But they get to Tandy's house, and Tandy runs in. She just wants to get her pink bag with her money and her pills in it. And she walks in and she's like, oh, my mom's here. And oh, this random guy that she's dating is here as well. And I was laughing because...
Was it Greg?
Greg, yeah, I think it was. And he's wearing, did you love the imagery of, like, so Greg is wearing the little pink bathrobe, and then, like, that's put up against the imagery of, like, Cloak wearing his, like, of Ty wearing his badass Cloak black bathrobe. And I'm like, that was, like, so good. Like, here's this basically loser guy who says he's a lawyer, and they have hopes of, like, filing an injunction. So it seems like they've been trying to sue Roxanne for the death of Nathan Bowen since it happened, because they blamed everything on him. But they're there doing drugs and drinking, and Tandy's obviously not impressed, and she's like, whatever, I don't care what you guys are doing. But she goes to get her pink bag, and she looks up at the vent where she keeps it, and it's open. And that's the realization moment where she's like, my mom is doing my drugs with her crazy boyfriend.
Such a heavy scene. And and stuff came out while they were talking. Like they started with just that, and then all the stuff that's been hidden, and obviously Melissa is not herself, or not completely herself, or she's more out of it than usual. And Tandy's super pissed off at what happened because Melissa doesn't know the trouble that Tandy's in, so Tandy's super stressed out, and stuff comes flying out. And yeah, for me this was maybe even more than the later scenes. Like this was the big Tandy scene, like the one with the most weight for me, like heavy stuff.
Oh yeah, for sure. Because it's so awkward when you're in this scene seeing this is her mom and some random guy she's sleeping with, and they're doing drugs and drinking in the living room, and Tandy's like, okay, whatever, like this is a normal occurrence, I've seen this 1,000 times before. And then you get this weird reaction from Melissa where she's trying to act like everything's still fine, like, oh, there's just crushed up pills on the table, it's no big deal, oh, we're just celebrating because they filed an injunction or whatever. And Tandy was willing to kind of just be like, to blow it off, even if those were her drugs, to blow it off until she realized that they also stole her money. And that was the money that she needed to help fund her new ID. So she is like, what the hell? You stole my money to file this injunction that's going nowhere. This is ridiculous. And then we kind of see Melissa kind of attack her back, really, and really kind of get into a deeper level, because she seems to be the kind of person who's staying on the surface of things because she doesn't want to cause any ripples. But then she starts delving into, where did you get the money? Where did you get these pills? They have all different people's names on them. Don't you think I would notice? And then they're going back and forth and really getting into a deeper sense of who those characters are. And then at the end, she throws out the "if your father was still alive" card.
Dang.
I know, and I wrote my notes. I wrote Doom right next to it because I was like, wow, she really went there with the "if your father was still alive" thing.
He'd be heartbroken. That's like,
like that whole scene. The two of them, Olivia and Andrea, their acting was fantastic off of each other. Like Greg is in the background wearing a pink bathrobe. He kind of
Greg is doing in his own way. He's also perfectly cast.
Yes, but in the sense that like they're so good at like their acting together in this scene was so good that you're more focused on the personal issues between them than the fact that there's a guy standing in a drug-filled room with a bathroom. You know, that your attention is still drawn to their storyline and the conversations that they're having with each other.
That's true.
And Melissa says to her, you know, like, you're going to run away because that's what you do about everything. Right? She does say that to her. She brings up run away from everything. Like that's
another right cross.
Yeah. So like that's really hit home, especially in this episode, that when Tandy comes across a problem, she just runs away. And that's what she does after she has this conversation. And as she's running away, that's when her mother throws that "if your father was still alive" card at her. Like that really low blow. I was like, oh, she went there. But you could feel the pain from both of them in that scene.
Right. Yeah, that explains everything. That shows, that makes it clear. Like that's how they coped, and that's how they dealt with that loss. And we'll find out later. We'll see how Ty and his mom dealt with a similar loss, but that's what happened to them, and that defined their relationship for I don't know how long, but at least like a few years. And so she starts running, and they intersperse that with Ty running for a very much more shallow reason.
Yeah.
He's late for practice.
Yeah, so I don't know, like, was he, like, did he fall asleep or something while he was waiting for Detective Connors, but all of a sudden he, like, came
Yeah, he
back to
blacked out.
himself and was like,
Yeah.
oh, I'm late. He has all these text messages from everybody, like, where the hell are you?
That's weird. Yeah.
So he gets to practice, and here's where the title of the episode comes in. We see everybody in the gym doing suicide sprints. And basically, it's his fault that they're doing it because he wasn't there. The coach is mad, and Ty's trying to say, hey, this is all on me. Let me take the punishment, please. And the coach is like, no, you're just going to go sit in the rafters and just watch practice and basically watch what you've done to everybody. All because Ty was lost in the moment of looking for Detective Connors.
Mm-hmm.
Then we're taken back to Tandy, who's back with Liam, and they're in the laundromat basically talking to the guy who's going to get her a new ID. And something around the ballpark of, like, they need $11,000 for all this, like, documentation to be legal. And Liam is like, I can get $5,000 for you.
Oh,
And
Liam.
she's like, I know, right? Like, he's just like, not even a second thought. Here's
I know.
$5,000. Here you go. And then you're like, man, all right, Liam, you're treating her well, even if it's in a bad sense. It's not the right path, but you're still treating her well. So they have an odd chemistry between them that was like, okay.
He won you over.
Huh?
He won you over.
He did. Okay, well, by the end of the episode, come on.
True.
I think he won everybody over. So then you see this guy come into the laundromat, and he's like, I need my suit repaired or something, and I need it done right now. And he pulls out all this cash and basically find out that this guy's going to a wedding. So Tandy sees that, and she's like, this guy has a whole lot of money. Let's go. She formulates this plan in her mind. And girl is smart to come up with these plans right on the fly, So she tells the dry cleaner, here's the $5,500, keep it, or, I'm going to come back with double the money. And if I don't, then keep it. And Liam is like, what the hell are you doing? And she's like, don't worry, I got this. So then she borrows some clothes from the dry cleaners. They get all dressed up, and they go to basically crash this wedding. So she gives them, like, an identity, and they're at this fancy wedding party, and you can see everybody there obviously has money. It's a really nice venue. Everything looks really nice. So you're like, wow, she's really going for this. Like, when she wants something, she can get it. She's really determined, set her mind to this.
Right. And I like it because it gives a good sort of change of pace for the episode, like, because they're back to their conning people, and it's like obviously it's a serious reason that they're trying to get money, but at least it's a mini kind of adventure, for them.
It's a lighter, like, after sort that heavy episode, after that heavy scene with Melissa and Tandy, it's kind of like, okay, well, let's dive back into this moment, because at least I can plan, I can think in this moment to get what I want. I don't have to think about all that pain that I was just in. Yeah,
let's kind of have some fun.
Yes, and then have some fun. And, it was kind of like, that was a great scene because they looked the part, and they clearly had done things like that before. They knew what they were doing together. They're able to work. They're able to work well together. So you wonder, like, how many times in the past have they done something like this? Maybe not on this scale, but so they're there at the wedding, and you're like, okay, this is going to be good. Whatever's going to happen at this wedding, this is going to be entertaining. Then we go back to poor Ty, and he's running his own suicide sprints. And this is probably like a punishment he put on himself, I think, because he was all alone, and he was pushing himself really hard, and he's going and he falls in the middle of the gym floor, and then he gets up, and Father Delgado's there, and Father Delgado kind of throws him a towel and is like, take a break.
Let's go,
for the day, And I was kind of hoping that they would have some conversation there, and I wonder if there was a scene that was deleted in that
Oh yeah,
in
yeah.
that moment because there was no conversation between them.
He just kind of disappears.
Yeah, and then Ty ends up in the locker room, but
Yeah,
I
that's
bet
a
that
good
they
point.
did have a conversation, and I wonder what it was about.
Right. Because they could have cut that part out. Like Delgado didn't even need to be there. Like he could have just stood up
Right.
and gone to the. Well, maybe to show that he's still, watching
Looking
out for him.
after him, yeah,
Yeah,
because it was
yeah,
late. It was
yeah.
definitely late when he was doing that. So maybe just to show that Father Delgado is an important figure in his life. But I bet you that they had a conversation that they did have to cut out of the episode for time. So I just wonder if if we ever get deleted scenes, if that would be something that would be in there.
Yeah.
Um, so then again, we go back to Tandy. And sometimes in shows, when shows do this, like going back and forth between characters, I don't like it because
Hmm.
I get too confused. Like, where did we leave off with somebody? What's going on here? I did not feel that way at all. Did you, when they were
Okay.
going back and forth between?
Well, at least with this scene, I mean, because she's in a party, so it's not the usual situation for her. So it's very each scene was distinct. Like
Yeah.
there's like there there's like a heist thing going on over here,
Hmm.
and over here is it's interesting because uh this is like I said, this like it's more as lighthearted as Tandy's life can get, and then over at with Ty, it's starting to get darker or more serious, I
Hmm.
guess, because
Hmm.
cracks are starting to show with him, and he's starting to get obsessed, and it's starting. People are turning against him, and as she's off having fun, or supposedly having fun, like a fun adventure, he's the one who's. And they're even shooting it dark. Like he's
Yeah.
in a dark. He's literally in a dark place, like
Right.
in some locker room. So that's a good what do you call it? What's the word? Dichotomy? Is that a word?
Yeah. Yes. Yes. Yes.
Yes. There
Like
you go.
that. And I definitely agree. And just like because you get to the point with Tandy and you're like, okay, this is really great, but what is Ty doing? And then they take you over to Ty. So you have
Yeah.
that, you like both of those characters so much that it
Hmm.
doesn't it feels like both of their stories are just as important. It doesn't feel like this is a sub story. This episode is more focused on one person than the other. It really
Oh yeah.
feels equal throughout the
Right.
whole show. And
Yep.
that again, it must be really hard to write and then dice together. So they did a really good job of having those actors equally portrayed and those characters equally portrayed throughout the episode. Um, but we know that Father Delgado throws the towel at Ty, and then Ty goes off to the locker room. He's done practicing for the day. So then we go back to Tandy, and she is sitting at a table at the wedding, and they're kind of trying to find out like where's the money, where are we going to get the money from, and they're both kind of like canvassing the room, talking to people, they're I'm so and so's distant cousin, nobody's questioning anything because nobody really
Yep.
knows each other at this party, and they're really trying to figure out like where is the money, who has the money. So at the beginning they're
Yeah.
thinking that it's the wedding planner who has the money, but we know from the conversation that it's actually, I think it's the maid of honor, or like the best friend is
Yep.
actually the one who's
Holding the money.
carrying the money. And Liam is actually the one kind of canvassing the room and listening to
Yeah.
everybody's conversations, and he's getting like the down and dirty. And they refer
Right.
to the maid of honor person as having resting basic face, which that was like the best line I think of the episode that killed me. I'm like, yes. And Tandy or Liam said, "Is that a thing?" And Tandy said, "No, but it can be." And I'm like, "It is now. Resting basic phase is definitely a thing now." Um, so again, they're trying to figure out, what's going on, and at one point, Tandy's like sitting at a table, and she's reading, like the bride is giving her speech, and she's reading these little notes about love, and then all of
Yeah.
a sudden, Tandy's power starts to like activate, and she's like, oh, what am I gonna do? And she kind of tries to hide under the table, and the table's just glowing, and you're like, oh
Yeah.
god. Like, what is gonna happen in this moment? Poor Tandy. So that was interesting to see that, they still don't have 100% control over their powers or even know what's going on, really. So things are just happening. And right. You wonder in the moment, because then we go back to Ty, and Ty's in the locker room, and he gets cornered by his team, and they're pissed because they had to do all of this work because he wasn't there. And so he's in trouble. They're starting to beat him up. Do you think that the activation of her powers in that moment, do you think that had anything to do with the fact that Ty was in trouble?
That's interesting that you would think that. Like, I don't know if that's the case, but I was actually trying to. I guess I just didn't have the time. I wanted to see if their stories were affecting each other.
Yeah.
And not just in terms of plot structure, but the actual concept of the show. Like, if one is stressed out, will the other one react somehow? And it's interesting that you picked up on it, because I didn't really pursue it, because I was like, I don't know if I have the time to figure this out.
Yeah.
But did you like try to figure that one out?
Well, it's hard because like you almost get that sense because they're both like Ty's in trouble, but at the same time, Tandy is in an emotionally compromised state where she's like hearing about how great love is, and she's like, I'm never gonna get love, and she's feeling this sadness inside of her. So it's like, was her power activated because she was in a compromised emotional state, or because Ty was in trouble, or maybe it's a combination of the two? But I think that maybe that's something that we're gonna learn about them. Is that anything that we see in the comic books? Do they kind of like play off each other like that?
Hold on, let me think. Not really. Like, as far as I know, I mean, no, they just kind of, both of them eventually lose control whenever they don't get to do whatever they do to each other to release that to control the power. They need each other. They're codependent in terms of controlling the powers, but I don't think there's any kind of bond thing where one reacts to the other almost involuntarily. So I feel like if they introduce that in the TV series, I mean, that would be really cool, right? Like, and like, good job to the writers if they can pull that off. Like you can get that deeper layer of they're affecting each other across like a distance. That'd be really cool.
Yeah, I totally agree. That would be like a really interesting plot line, but I think it's too soon to tell anything at this point. Maybe in the third episode we'll get a little bit more insight into how their powers really work. But in that moment I was like, wow, is she really reacting because of that, or is it because of her state?
Interesting.
So poor Ty is basically getting beat up by his team. And did you feel bad for him? Because I felt bad for him when he was like, he's laying on the ground in the equipment room, and there's like this black tarp next to him, and he gets just like, oh, I can escape from this, and he pulls it over himself, and then he comes back. I was like, no.
And they even did like there was an extended pause, so you'd think, oh, he did it, and then and then the guy whacks him in the face again. Like, okay.
Yeah. And you're like, oh, poor Ty. Like, he's probably like, damn it, I even have clothes on in this scene. But
that's the thing. You have to take the clothes off. That's part of it.
Right. That's part of the power.
If he took his clothes off, I guarantee the guys would have been freaked out and disappeared.
Yes.
So it would have worked.
So we get this scene next, and this is where Liam won me over, and probably where Liam won a bunch of people over, because we're all on the Ty Tandy side, and then we got Liam, and it's like, but then we have this scene. So they're dancing at the wedding, and they look like a good couple. Like, they were cute, they were believable as a couple together, even though they were scheming to rob from this wedding. So she has this moment where she jumps into his hope So his hope vision, his hope memory. And, he's basically seeing them together talking about how much he loves her and how much he wants to be with her and how much he wants to protect her. And, basically saying, like, if you give me a chance, I can be everything that you deserve and want to be. And you see Tandy kind of watching this from a distance, and you're like, oh, she's afraid of this too.
Yeah, like a commitment thing, maybe?
Yeah. Or just even being loved in general, because maybe she has if somebody, the more I love someone, the more pain I'll be in when I lose them, because I always lose everybody I love, kind of thing.
Right.
But that scene got me. We were all like, oh, Liam's hope, he just loves her, and he just wants her to love him and to trust him and to let him take care of her.
Yeah, and we see this through Dagger's power, so there's no reason to doubt her power. So this is, they're both con men, so you never know, but then we see this and, okay, so Liam is just a good dude. Really loves her.
Point.
Sorry. Just really loves her. That's 100% fact according to the power. So, it makes what happens later a little bit more painful.
I know. But you're right. That's a super good point. Like, this is her power. This is his actual raw self that we're seeing. So this is not a lie. And really good point to see, like, if Tandy ever doubted that because she wasn't 100% sure, because they both are con artists, this moment would have, shattered any doubt and probably instilled even more fear in her at that point.
Yeah.
And when she came out of it, like, I don't know if Liam, like, did he feel anything? So, like, you mentioned that when Cloak has his power, it kind of drains the other person. Does Tandy's power do anything to the person she touches?
I actually don't know. I'm interested in seeing if there are any physical effects, because she can stun people in the comic books through her dagger. So same effect basically as what Cloak does. Either way, you're incapacitating the enemy. So I want to watch. I didn't get it here, but maybe. So we'll see. We'll see in the future.
Okay. Well, it definitely had an effect on Tandy.
She
was just shocked.
It backfires. It stuns her whenever she uses her power.
Right. Poor thing. She was shocked to the point where she was like, I got to take a break. So she actually ends up going off and going to the bathroom. And Ty is left locked in the locker room. He has a bat. He's trying to bust his way out of the locker room. So we see that, but then we come back and Tandy's in the bathroom and she's kind of washing her face off and trying to get herself back together. And this other lady comes into the bathroom and she's basically like, what's going on? And Tandy has a conversation with this woman. And it's funny because this woman is a complete stranger to her, and Tandy tells her more about herself than she tells anybody else. You know? Like, and she tells Liam, then she tells her mom. She's telling this complete stranger, some of the problems of her life. And
right. She's more comfortable doing that.
Yeah. And you find out that the woman is, studying to be a psychiatrist or a psychologist. So she does have that, way about her that would make you want to talk to her. But that I thought that was really interesting. And then funny too, because she gives Tandy the line of advice, and I wrote it down. She said, worry about the rest of your life tomorrow. Basically, to just do what makes you happy and what's going to be good for you tonight. Just do it. Mm-hmm. So then they hug, and we pan down to the bag, and Tandy kind of comes into this realization that, hey, this is the lady with all the money. And you're like,
basic face.
Yes, this is resting basic face.
I feel bad for the actress.
Oh my gosh, right? And that's what she's going to be known for from now on. No.
Oh no.
But it was funny because, she's really trying to help Tandy and is like don't worry about life. Do you in this moment. Let's, do what makes you happy. And then Tandy's like, cool, I'm going to steal all the money that you have to pay for this wedding.
Thanks for the advice.
Right. So she literally took the advice and went for the money in the purse. However, she got that out. But that was a good moment. I thought that was really funny how they wrote that in there. So she ends up getting the money. But we see them kind of finishing off that wedding scene. She gets the money. The resting basic face maid of honor goes to try to pay the caterer for everything, and then she realizes the money isn't in there. And then we see Liam is behind the counter and he's grabbing the bar till, and then Tandy just takes the rest of the money envelopes off the present table and is like, yeah, we're out of here. And then they end up stealing the just married bar.
Right.
The bride and groom were supposed to leave in, and they're gone from there. So she definitely took to heart that advice of doing what is going to make you happy in that moment and stole all that money.
Yeah.
So then we're taken back to Ty, and he gets out of his, where he was locked up in the equipment room. So I'm assuming he kind of busts his way out of there. And then, of course, again, yes, he's going after Detective Connors again.
Right.
And he's bringing the bat with him. I don't know what he plans on doing, but he's not very good at it because he makes too much noise. And ends up running away. The bat's there. Detective Connors is like, okay, I don't really know what's going on. But then Ty goes back home, and he has this great scene with his mom. So, we had the Tandy and Melissa scene, and now we have the Ty and Adina scene of the mother and son kind of talking, and she's at home folding laundry, and he's kind of like, how do you hold this all together? And we saw from scenes earlier with the gun that she doesn't necessarily hold it together all the time too well.
Yeah, she only projects that for kids.
Yeah. So, and I get the sense that she has some kind of political career where she said something like, I'm trying to make sure the right people get elected so that everybody's protected.
Yeah, so maybe, I don't know, PR or something like that.
Something like that.
Mm-hmm.
So, they're having a conversation. They have this really great mother-son relationship. And then she kisses him, and that's when Ty's power comes out with his mother. Yeah. So what did you think of that scene?
Just the two of them, right? When they were talking?
Yeah, and going into kind of that nightmare.
Yeah. Well, so definitely again we're looking at, this is when we really see the other side of, like, we kind of get confirmation of how Adina coped with that loss, and how she's going about her life, and we get like that. We get the confirmation, like, the mothers on this show are so central to the story.
Yeah.
So you have like a square, like it's Tandy and her mom, and Tyrone and his mom, and you see how different people cope with a similar kind of loss, and Adina held it together, and her son sort of was basically just did what she did, and they're holding it together. And meanwhile, what's her name? Melissa sort of lost control of her life, and that influenced Tandy, and Tandy lost control of her life. So you get that nice, again, there's like a symmetry to it, same thing but different. And in the case of Tyrone using his power, we get like a really great scene of like a supermarket metaphor.
Yeah.
I don't have any kids, but I would guess that losing your kid at a supermarket is kind of stressful. Like I guess a lot of parents are stressed out by that, and she gets the worst kind of version of it, and that's her worst fear. Not just losing. I mean, I'm sure not just losing Billy, but especially Tyrone, because he's the one who's left with her, and yeah, and the way they lit that scene, it was like out
That
of a
was
horror
cool.
movie.
Yeah, and then when she saw their graves, did you think it was interesting though in that like fear scene that when Billy runs off and she's telling him not to go and he rounds the corner, you hear two gunshots, and at that moment I was like, they were told that he just had a drug overdose, that he wasn't shot or anything, but Ty told them that he was shot. So like,
God.
does she suspect that something else happened, that she wasn't told the exact truth, or is she only getting that gunshot in her fear because that's what Ty had always said happened? So I just wonder, like, in her mind, like, does she think basically that she was placated to kind of cover something up? Does she have that thought?
That's a really nice catch. I completely missed that. That's good. Good stuff.
And then Ty runs off and gets shot, and then she sees their graves, and you're like, it's amazing acting by everyone involved, but you feel for her, and then she sees on the milk cartons, you see her kids' faces, and like this whole thing, and Ty is seeing this, and he's like, oh my God, my mother has this fear, and that's why she's the way she is. That's why she's so protective over me. And that, like, you got to know that he understands that, but to visually see that and to visually be part of somebody's fear, you wonder, like, does he feel what she's feeling in that instance? Like, I think that would probably bring him closer to his mother in that sense.
Absolutely. And I think that's it. That's what finally sets him off, because you see the arc of his story for the episode is he's getting pushed towards revenge.
Yes.
And he gets closer and closer, but for whatever reason he kind of bumbles his way out of doing whatever he has to do, but he gets closer and closer, and finally something as serious as seeing or getting confirmation of the pain that your mom is dealing with.
Yeah.
And like he says that she's poisoned, and he knows the guy who poisoned her, and that's it. That sets him over the edge.
Yeah, and he's kind of like, I'm going to take care of business because nobody does this to my mother.
Right.
He draws that inspiration. Yeah. That scene was really heartbreaking to me, and just like it was heartbreaking when Melissa and Tandy were having their interaction, this scene was heartbreaking too, in a different way, because like you said, they're both, these two relationships are dealing with loss and pain, but in such different ways.
Yeah.
And it was so well written into the show how they have that. But I'm really glad that they had, that duality of Tandy having a scene with her mom, but then Ty also had a scene with his mom. So they really kept that, like I was saying before, that this is not like a Tandy-centered episode or a Ty-centered episode. They really have equal time. And I think that's how it should be.
Yes.
For these characters.
Yeah. Cloak and Dagger, yeah.
Yeah. So moving on from there, we go back to Tandy and Liam, and they're at the dry cleaners, and she's obviously got her paperwork. We're good. And, he kind of stops Tandy and is telling her, like, everybody has demons. And he's kind of trying to tell her, like, let me help you, stop running away from everything. And trying to say, like, we can do this together. And then she drops the bomb on him and says, there is no we. And just like she does, she leaves. Yeah.
Yes.
So felt bad for Liam in that moment. But at the same time, I was like, no, there is no we. with you guys. That's fact. Because there's a we, but it's with somebody else. So
Yeah, it's not Liam and Dagger.
right.
Carl and Dagger.
I felt bad. You know, I felt bad. I felt bad for him because he basically got dumped in that moment, and he was kind of like, you know, she kind of just left him hanging there. But it wasn't almost like the look on his face. He like expected it, and you kind of felt like you felt
Oh,
for him
yeah.
because you were able to see his wishes, his hopes, and his dreams, and they were all basically crushed in that moment.
Absolutely.
And then she just left him.
It's rough stuff.
Yeah. Then she leaves, and we go back to. Just looking at my notes here. We go back to Ty, and he's pumped up. He's going to get Detective Connors. So Detective Connors is at maybe his apartment or something.
Yeah.
Wherever he is, and he's building this gas grill, and you're like, oh, that's what he had the box and propane tanks for. He's building this.
Oh.
Okay. I really thought he was doing something dubious with the propane tanks and stuff, but then he ended up just building a grill, and you're like, oh, he's just doing something normal. Okay, I'll let you slide here, Detective Connors. But Ty basically breaks into his place with a gun. Where did he get that gun from? Huh? That looks a lot like the gun that his mother had. So he's like, kind of just there, and Detective Connors is like, whoa, where did this guy come from? And Ty shoots the gun, and then he's gone. He disappears. And Detective Connors is like looking at himself like, did I get shot? What just happened? And so he's left in this state of like, there's no bullet hole in me. What the hell did I just see? So you're kind of thinking like, maybe he probably thinks he's crazy seeing this kid, and this kid keeps disappearing, you know?
I can imagine that, yeah.
Yeah.
So I just want to say, like we agree, like JD is like a good actor, but that part where he thinks the bullet hits him, he has like a weird, goofy face and body expression. I just kept watching it. I was like, that's, and I don't know, like I guess if that happens to someone, like people make goofy like poses and stuff, like obviously, right? Like you think you're about to whatever. But still, it's just funny because it gets isolated because Ty disappears.
Yeah, I totally understand when he doesn't make like a goofy face, and then he's doing like, yeah. But then you think of like, we were talking before about how he's got this coward.
Oh yeah.
This cowardliness attached to him. So like, is that showing in his reaction? Is that cowardly, like afraid, like what do I do? I'm shot. Like look showing on him instead of being like big bad cop. Like I'm gonna take care of business.
Yeah.
So.
I'm gonna die like a man. No.
Exactly. So I'm gonna go with that was part of his character coming out there of like being that coward. I'm afraid.
Yeah, and I just love the whole like it almost I didn't expect it because of the Tandy Liam scene. Like it felt like that was the ending of the episode.
Mm-hmm.
The way they were doing it, she was like driving off and music started to play.
Yeah.
And then just this short like epilogue thing tacked on, and it's like serious life-threatening scenario, and the emotion on Aubrey's face, and I don't know. It looks like I'm imagining it, but it feels like he grew like by 30 pounds.
Yeah.
he looked jacked in that scene. And then the whole thing was so cool. And then there's like this guiding force that's like, no, you don't want to be a murderer, or maybe that was what was happening. You don't want to be a murderer. I'm gonna teleport you, or you're gonna teleport yourself wherever you need to be.
Yeah.
Which is what happened, I guess.
Yeah, so you're left with Tandy driving away, and Liam calls her, and we had this scene with Detective Bridget Detective Bridget O'Reilly where she's arresting Liam. So Liam gets broken up with, essentially, and then he gets placed under arrest. And you're like, well, Liam's having a bad night. So he's calling Tandy and he's like, I gave you all my money. I really need you to come help me. I was arrested for the crime that Tandy committed. So I'm not 100% sure how they found his prints or whatever. They'll probably get into that in the next episode. But Tandy is listening and she's like, I don't really know if I'm going to go back and help him or not. So you kind of see that she's wishy-washy about it. And then she looks like she's coming up to a crossroads where she can either turn around or keep going. And that's when Ty appears in front of her. And the bullet goes through the window of her car, the windshield of her car. And she's obviously freaked out because all of a sudden this guy with a bullet is in the middle of the road. And she crosses her hands like this and the daggers come out.
Yeah.
Between her. And then that's kind of the end. So,
yeah,
was, like you were saying, this powers that be, whatever's above them, is taking, telling Ty, no, you don't want to be a murderer, but I need you to be here because you can't let Tandy leave.
Right,
and
yeah.
Essentially, that's what's stopping her from leaving because she's
from running away.
The car. Yeah.
Yep.
So, like you were saying before, in the first episode when he was telling her stop running, I mean, physically in this moment he is stopping her from running away.
Yes.
Like no one else has been able to.
That's true. Like he didn't debate with her. He just used his powers to have her crash into a tree.
Right.
Or whatever.
Right. So yeah, like that's interesting. Like maybe if Liam was the person she was closest to, him being arrested and put into a terrible situation because of her, couldn't even get her to stop running. But then there's Cloak. And
yeah.
Now you're done. You're not running away from this anymore. You're not leaving the city. Because her plan was to take those documents and get out of New Orleans and never look back.
Yep.
And that's obviously not going to happen anymore because she's losing her method of doing so. So
yeah.
that was how it ended. That's how we were left. Okay, now what's gonna happen? and I felt like when the episode was over, and I don't know if you felt the same way, but I was like, okay, now where's episode 3? I need it now.
I know. I think I swore. I was like, crap. 1 week.
At least we only have to wait a week. I mean, to be fair. But
yeah.
That it was great, and like just having that scene. So now we know, okay, they definitely know each other. They definitely know they have powers. How are we going to go from here? They obviously have to have some more interaction with each other, and they have to figure out what the heck is going on with each other so that they can learn how to control these powers and not potentially kill people with them, because that's what's happening. So we had a sneak peek into next week, and it looks like we are going to get some more background into how they got their powers and maybe some more interaction between them of how they can control them. So looking forward for sure to next week's episode. Any comments overall?
Overall, I think this episode was, I think we get the big insight we get here in this episode is that Tandy, like the way she treats people is that she kind of closes up. Well, going back into episode 1, so she's open, gregarious, out there, and then when things get serious, she retreats, she clams up, she runs away. And with Tyrone, it's the opposite, where instead of closing up, he opens up. Like he literally he builds the stress or whatever it builds inside him, and then he explodes, which is what happens here. Like he towards the end of the episode, he's like screaming, and shouting, and the anger is coming out, and it's the opposite of Tandy. Like when things get real, and she just has to share stuff about her, she clams up. She'd rather talk to a stranger. So that I feel like that's the main conceit, that we learn a little bit more about these two individuals before we crash them into each other.
Mm-hmm.
So we get that bit of insight. How about you?
I really like these two characters a lot, and I wasn't sure if I was gonna like one more than the other, but I really feel like an equal bond between both of them, and I think that that's what the writers were going for, and I think that they really did a really good job achieving that, especially with the actors they picked. They have such great chemistry together, but really feeling for Tandy and that terrible situation that she's in where her life is just spiraling out of control. And then on the same hand, feeling for Ty because he has been through this terrible incident as well where he lost his brother, and he's really just trying to get through life, but he has this anger inside of him because he knows that he was wronged in what happened with his brother, like that the truth
Yeah.
was never really given. So you
Yeah.
feel equally for both of them, and that's what I wanted. I wanted to like both of these characters equally because I don't want to necessarily see them as one person, but I want to see them as a team and have that duality
Mhm.
between them. And I really like what I see so far, and I think other people do as well. I do have some comments from Twitter yesterday that I promised I would read aloud.
Yeah.
I did do some live tweeting yesterday, and that was difficult to live tweet and watch the episode and take my notes at the same time, but I think I got through it.
Yeah.
But
Good job.
thank you. Thank you. But guys, please feel free to interact with us whenever on Twitter. If you have any comments or anything, we'd be happy to discuss them on the show.
Yes.
I'm going to take a quick pause here, and we're going to leave room for a word from one of our sister podcasts.
Hello, guys. It's Ashley and Chloe from the Siren Podcast.
Hey, guys.
A podcast all about Freeform's new show, Siren. Siren takes the whimsical concept of mermaids and gives it a darker twist. You can watch Siren on Hulu or the Freeform app. All of our episodes can be found on YouTube or Apple Podcasts. Follow us on social media and join the Mer family.
Okay, guys, we're back. And again, I'm going to read some comments from social media that we had yesterday. And they're both centered around the same topic, so we can talk about them really quickly. And we have talked about this, but this one is from @TiltedSeanMenX. And they said, can we talk about the chemistry between Tyrone and Tandy? Yes. And I think that we mentioned that a couple times. Their chemistry is awesome. You just feel like they're together, that there's something between them, even though they've, I would say barely met, but they don't really know all about themselves yet, and you can still feel it.
Right. And even the way they structured it, and we touched upon it because I think we both sensed it, even though they're not together especially in episode 2, they're not together for like the last 2 minutes. There's that feeling of that they're going on the journey together. So I don't know if chemistry is the word for that, but they're building that relationship. And in terms of the two actors, and this one goes outside of the show. I guess the two of us were more exposed to it, and everybody who follows the show, they've been promoting for the past month or so everywhere.
Yeah.
And they're so goddamn cute together. You can see they kind of mirror the relationship of Olivia and Aubrey mirror the relationship of Tyrone and Tandy.
Yeah.
They play off each other really well, and they have different strengths, and yeah, you can see that they together they're for me anyway, they're just as interesting as they are apart. And then the same thing hopefully we'll see in the show when now we've got these two interesting, well-developed pieces, when they come together and seeing that real life connection that they have. We will see it, and cheating, knowing that everybody seems to have been raving about the people who've seen episode 4, I think, are raving about the how they play off each other. We're just so lucky that a show called Cloak and Dagger has the two most important characters that they play off each other really, really well.
Yeah, and that plays actually into the other comment that we got from Twitter, and this is from @ZSomG16, and they said, first 2 episodes were amazing. I'm excited for more. So are we. The chemistry between Olivia and Aubrey is incredible. What an incredible show. And yeah, I totally agree. Like, not just the chemistry between Ty and Tandy on screen, but the relationship that Olivia and Aubrey have, just like you were saying off screen, is infectious. They're so cute. You see all those promotional photos in all the places that they've been, and they really have like a good friendship relationship together. And you need to have that when you're playing, characters that are so integrated with each other. You need to have that connection. So again, that's really great to see, and I can't wait to see how that is developed throughout the first season of the show. I'm sure they'll have moments where they have their fights and all that interesting plot twist sort of thing. But for now, I really am interested in seeing more of them together on screen and not just in those small snippets where they're actually physically together.
Yeah.
Any final comments?
Well, just thank you to the people who replied. Like you said earlier, if you have anything to say about the show or you have questions for us or just discussing with the other Cloak and Dagger fans, just feel free to at us. We're in very different time zones, so one of us will probably be awake or we'll be able to reply to you. So thanks. It's so cool to see the community kind of finally coming together and everyone just commenting on each other, and it's nice, and it's the first 2 episodes, so there's like an energy that it's a new thing, and there are a lot of new fans to add to Cloak and Dagger, and they're all very much welcome. And so I'm excited for the next episode. I hear there's going to be like an experimental kind of storytelling structure to it. Okay. The promo is already out, so go watch that.
Yes, absolutely. Check out the promo. And we, if we can be a catalyst to join fans together and to really have that Cloak and Dagger discussion, that's what we're here for. So make sure you guys follow us on Twitter. All of our Twitter handles are in the show notes. So you can always get a hold of us on the Cloak and Dagger Pod Twitter account as well. We'll be happy to follow you guys back. And again, read any comments that you might have on the show here so that we can discuss them. Again, we're not just excited about the show, but we're excited about the fans and the discussion about the show. So please feel free to write us comments to us. Let us know what you want to see as part of our show. But again, we thank you for joining us, and we will be back next week with our review of episode 3. So we can't wait to see you guys again then. So thank you for joining us, and bye for now.
Bye, guys.
Thanks for listening to this week's episode. Make sure you check out the show's description down below so you can follow us on social media. Talk to you next time.